Hi there, Musiterature Recaps back with another breakdown. Today, I'm explaining a movie called Broken Mirrors. Ariela, a carefree teenage girl, is out enjoying herself with her friends. After catching a ride in a car, she joins her friends at a party. As the party continues, she bids farewell to another friend who's leaving with her boyfriend. Encouraged by the other girls, they urge Ariela to be bolder and even offer her a drink. At one point, Ariela glances at the clock and realizes it's already 12:30. She knows she's supposed to be home by midnight, so she quickly leaves the party. One of her friends had promised that her mother would give her a ride, but this promise went unfulfilled. Left with no other options, Ariela resorts to hitchhiking to get home. Her father, Giora, grows increasingly anxious as his daughter remains missing. He steps outside and spots Ariela emerging from an unfamiliar car, wearing short shorts, and hurriedly changing her clothes while concealing her attire in an electrical closet. When Ariela finally returns home, Giora demands that she remove her pants. Noticing the absence of the short shorts underneath, he instructs his wife, Nava, to fetch what's in the car's trunk. Nava retrieves her daughter's shorts but, in an attempt to avoid a scandal, decides to keep them hidden. Giora, however, is aware of the truth and decides to discipline his daughter. He takes scissors, cuts Ariela's clothing, and exposes her partially to the street. Despite his harsh parenting methods, Giora remains concerned for his daughter's well-being. He watches over her from the window throughout the night, determined to keep her safe. In the morning, Ariela returns to her bedroom a minute earlier than expected, and Giora once again punishes her. He instructs her to make the bed, all the while keeping a close eye on the time. At some point, Giora is momentarily distracted by a work call, and it's in that moment that Ariela decides to break a bottle, injuring her finger to put a stop to her father's mistreatment. A few hours later, Nava, Ariela, and Roit set out for a picnic. At one point, they decide to detour around a farm, despite their father's strict orders not to enter the area. The eldest daughter, Ariela, resents her mother's unquestioning obedience to their father. Shortly thereafter, Ariela asks her mother if she can take the wheel, but Nava refuses, expressing her lack of trust in her daughter's driving skills. They come to a stop near some rocks, and Nava asks Ariela to show her the right path to avoid damaging the car. She even promises to let Ariela drive on the way back if she joins in singing with them. After enjoying their time by a pond, the family begins their journey back home. True to her word, Nava lets Ariela take the wheel. As they approach the rocks again, they come to a halt. Nava initially wanted to take control but, upon Ariela's request, decides to trust her daughter. Guiding her daughter, Nava explains the path they should follow. However, at one point, Ariela mistakenly presses the gas pedal instead of the brake, causing her mother to be pushed and fall, hitting her head on a stone. A terrified Ariela tries to assist her mother, but Nava loses consciousness and remains immobile. With no ambulance in sight, the girls move their unconscious mother to the back seat and rush to the hospital. Giora, their father, arrives after learning of the incident. While he discusses the situation with the doctors, Ariela visits her mother's room and is distressed to see her in a coma and in a critical condition. Recognizing that the hospital isn't the place for his daughters, the man decides to take them back home, leaving them in the care of their grandmother. Ariela, however, displays defiance and a rebellious nature. She adamantly refuses to eat, first tossing her food into the trash can, then angrily smashing her plate on the floor. Ariela struggles to sleep at night and discovers her little sister, Roit, in the bathroom. Roit is deeply concerned about their mother and the recent events. Trying to comfort her younger sister, Ariela lies down with her in the bathroom. Meanwhile, Giora remains by his wife's side in her hospital room. As he drifts off to sleep, he's haunted by a nightmare, recalling events from a decade ago when he visited the farm to speak with the parents and son of a soldier whose life was lost due to his actions. The following morning, Giora and Ariela search for their car in the parking lot as the girl can't remember where she left it. Giora is aware of what transpired on the road but refrains from punishing his daughter because he struggles to think of a suitable punishment. Realizing she cannot escape punishment, Ariela decides to take matters into her own hands. In the bathroom, she finds a sharp object and cuts her pants, making her shorts exceedingly short. Afterward, she heads to the track and attempts to flag down a passing car, fully aware of the potential consequences. Shortly after, an SUV pulls up beside Ariela, and 4 guys offer her a ride, intrigued by the attractive girl. They invite her to participate in a game and outline the rules. In turns, each participant suggests a word from which they must create and sing a song. Failure to do so results in a punishment. However, they decide not to subject the girl to harm and propose that she removes an article of clothing for each mistake. Ariela, agreeing to the game's conditions, thinks of a word but refrains from singing. Ignoring her father's call, Ariela removes her sweater, leaving her in just her bra. One of the guys becomes aroused by the sight of the beautiful girl and tries to seduce her. Without restraint, he touches her breasts and invites a friend to join in. Ariela comprehends what is about to happen but doesn't resist, as she's prepared for a cruel and vile punishment. However, her body can't bear the disgust, and she becomes sick. The guys, now indignant, stop the car, drop off Ariela, and drive away. Afterward, she calls her younger sister to soothe her and inquire about their mother's condition. Since there hasn't been any punishment yet, Ariela asks Roit not to inform their father about their conversation and promises to return home as soon as their mother wakes up. Arriving at the location of the tragic incident, the girl reaches the farm, which her father had explicitly instructed her to avoid. While on the farm, Ariela accidentally stumbles into a pit and becomes stuck. An SUV pulls up nearby, carrying a young guy and his co-worker. Initially, Ariela declines their assistance, but a minute later, she allows Ben to help her by freeing her trapped leg from the pit. Still fixated on seeking punishment, Ariela tears open her sneaker and hurls a rock at the departing car, hoping that Ben and Simon would offer her a ride. As soon as Ben stops the car to return home, Ariela attempts to seduce Simon, taking advantage of the vulnerable situation. However, Simon resists the temptation and declines her advances. Shortly after, Ben, who had fetched some shoe repair glue from his home, returns to the car, and Ariela falls silent. Shortly after, the guy repaired the girl's damaged sneaker and urged her to leave the private farm. Ariela, however, is determined to stay and pleads for a job. Ben declines, citing the demanding physical labor that not everyone can handle. In an attempt to prove her strength and endurance, Ariela seizes a lighter and places her hand over an open flame, shocking Ben, who implores her to stop. Upon seeing a severe burn on Ariela's arm, Ben assists in treating the wound and, after witnessing her determination, agrees to let her work on the farm. After a brief tour of the grounds, Ben introduces her to the work involving flowers and gardening tools. Ariela notices that most of the wreaths they make are for the graves of military personnel. Curious, she questions who their customers will be once the war ends. Ben explains that there are people who die from natural causes, as well as many who become victims of car accidents. These words hit Ariela hard, reminding her of her comatose mother, whom she doesn't want to lose. As soon as Ben departs, Ariela goes to the cold storage area to find Simon, who is working with the flowers. She beseeches him to punish her and allows him to do as he pleases in an attempt to seduce him. Ariela removes her blouse, revealing her underwear. Realizing Simon's inner struggle, she exposes her breasts and allows him to touch them. Succumbing to his desires, Simon cannot contain himself and becomes more physically involved, prompted by Ariela's actions. At a certain point, Simon came to the realization that what was happening was entirely wrong. He gently pushed Ariela away and made a hasty exit. Faced with another rejection, Ariela decided to take matters into her own hands and locked herself inside a refrigerator. Meanwhile, Giora remained at the hospital, providing assistance to the medical staff in caring for Nava, who was in a coma. Later, he attempted to call his daughter, but she continued to ignore his calls. Giora inquired with his younger daughter about Ariela's whereabouts, but the younger sister concealed the truth as per Ariela's request, stating that they hadn't been in touch. In the evening, Ben returned to the farm and learned about Ariela being locked in the refrigerator. He cautiously opened the door slightly and cut the rope with scissors to gain access. Ben implored Ariela to come out, but she initially refused. In a surprising gesture, Ben also removed his clothes and expressed his willingness to endure the cold with her. Realizing that Ben was blameless in all of this, Ariela finally agreed to leave the refrigerator. Ariela was shivering from the cold, so Ben wrapped her in a blanket and drove her home to prevent her from falling ill. Upon arrival, Ariela fell asleep for several hours, warmed by the blanket next to a heating source. When she awoke, Ben discussed the weapon hanging on his wall. He shared the story that his father was a soldier who had lost his life during another military operation. Ben held the arrogant commander responsible for the loss, someone who had never extended an apology for his reckless error. At a certain moment, a spark of attraction ignites between the young man and Ariela, leading to a romantic impulse that prompts them to share a kiss. Meanwhile, Giora awakens from another haunting nightmare. In this dream, he finds himself sitting in a car outside the house of a fallen soldier's son, but unlike in reality, Ariela is by his side, not a fellow service member. Distressed, he rushes to the hospital's rooftop in search of fresh air to ease his anxiety. His worry for his daughter intensifies with each passing minute, and he repeatedly calls her. However, Ariela remains unresponsive. Frustrated and helpless, Giora records several voice messages and screams in desperation, taking out his anger on the concrete wall. Ariela, on the other hand, cannot find sleep and decides to wander around the house. On one of the walls, she discovers newspaper clippings recounting the story of Ben's father, who lost his life because the commander arrived at the task site a few minutes later than expected. This revelation gives her insight into why Ben's father never wanted any of his family to end up on the farm. Ariela is overcome with emotions, and she hastily leaves the premises, reaching out to her younger sister through a text message. Giora notices Ariela's unusual behavior and inquires about her from her younger sister. The younger sibling cannot deceive her father and admits that Ariela has chosen to take matters into her own hands. As Ariela leaves the farm, she manages to stop a local worker's van and requests a ride. Simultaneously, Giora comes to realize that his daughter is in danger and utilizes his connections to determine her whereabouts. Armed with the coordinates, he embarks on a journey and is confronted by the same forbidden farm that he had long feared. Ariela and the farmworker head into the countryside, but the man stops the van. He realizes that Ariela doesn't mind spending time with him and decides to take advantage of the situation. Before heading back, Ariela calls her father, but she mutes the sound on her side. She wants Giora to hear what she's doing, thinking it's a form of punishment, but at the same time, she doesn't want him to shout back. Giora answers the phone and overhears his daughter drinking with an unknown man and getting ready to be intimate. Ariela is a virgin, and Giora can't bear the thought of this happening, but he's powerless because he doesn't know where his daughter is. Despite his despair, Giora searches the area tirelessly and tries to find Ariela using a loudspeaker. Meanwhile, the daughter lies in the van. She allows the man to take off her underwear. The farm worker is ready to take her by when suddenly he hears Giora's voice and an approaching car. Recognizing the gravity of the situation, the terrified man quickly rushes to the driver's seat and, the moment Ariela steps out of the van, he hastily departs, trying to vanish from the scene. After finally locating his daughter, Giora extends his apologies for his oppressive behavior and assures her that there will be no more punishments. The father deeply regrets the parenting methods he employed and implores his daughter's forgiveness, holding her close. He is determined not to let Ariela carry the weight of one impulsive action for the rest of her life and become like him. Later, Ariela pays a visit to the hospital and checks in on her mother, who remains in a coma. In the meantime, Giora gathers his courage and heads to the farm to have a conversation with Ben, seeking forgiveness from the young man. And here the movie ends. Thank you for watching.